You know what I love about Canada? They're so liberal and they have their fly patterns are so crazy. And I like the popsicle leech. I've caught a bunch of fish on it. And I just noticed the Las Vegas leech. What stays, what is it? What's that term? What happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. What happens in Canada stays in Canada. So we won't tell you about this leech, right? No. Las Vegas leech. It's obviously colorful.
And that's why I called it that. I don't normally tie a lot of attractor patterns that are flashy, but this particular leech, very flashy in color because of the use of peacock crystal chenille. It's a good pattern that works early in the spring and late in the fall when the fish are aggressive, looking for food, and this is something big and gaudy going by them. It seems to work.
Well, you know, I have a friend that calls his streamer the Las Vegas showgirl.
There you go.
I mean, you know, what can you say?
I would assume it's pretty flashy too.
It's pretty flashy, a saltwater fly.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, one of the things that I find so innovative about your Stillwater solutions is the use of brilliant colors and the combinations of mute colors with brilliant colors reflecting. My whole bench is full of Stillwater solution dubbings, and I really like what Superfly is doing here, and I know a lot of fly tyers in the U.S. are going to be benefited by your use of blends.
That's right, and you know, the whole idea was to try to get colors that Phil and I thought would represent the natural colors that we'd often see in invertebrates, aquatic invertebrates that trout fed on in still waters. You mix that with the right balance of some flashy material, and you got something that's going to turn their heads.
And you've also dyed the natural feathers like partridge and turkey, and I mean, there's all kinds of them, and to match those blends.
It's a good combination.
Oh, it's fabulous. Yeah. So let's move on. I know that you were going to be talking about this, but I just thought we'd tell everybody about it. So let's go on and find out what stays in Las Vegas, or whatever that term is. What happens in Las Vegas and Canada, stay there.
The next fly I'm going to tie is called the Las Vegas leech. So it's a flashy name, and there's a reason for it. We're going to be using some pretty sparkly crystal chenille to tie the fly. The beauty of this fly, though, and the reason why I tied, is that it's an excellent leech slash attractor pattern that works well on early spring trout, and particularly, again, on late season trout just before freeze up. Those two times of the year, trout are very, very aggressive. And the reason for that is that there's not a lot of insect hatches occurring early in the spring because the ice has just come off, or the water isn't warm enough for those big midge hatches to start. And in the fall, the water is super cooled. All the insect hatches are basically done. And so the trout are looking for bread and butter food sources. And when you strip a flashy leech in front of them, you don't know what's going to happen. So another very simple fly to tie, but can be extremely effective. I'm going to be using from a 10 to a 6 3 extra long shank streamer hook for the fly. I've got a 1/8 inch gold metal bead for the bead head, and that's going to make that fly swim up and down the water. So I'm going to be using Stillwater Solutions long strung marabou in black for the tail. Like this. I'm just going to take off some strands, peel off about 1/4 of an inch off the stem, and then pull it off. And we may have to take a couple chunks of it like that. First, I'll bring my tying thread back to the bend of the hook. I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to, that marabou, once it's wet, it really does thin out. So again, I took off another 1/4 inch strip, like so, and right there, I'm going to lay that down. And the marabou is just going to provide a lot of breathing action to the fly. So now we've got that. I'm just going to cut the excess marabou off, and then I'm just going to take a couple strands of pearlescent flashabou, and I'm going to lay a couple strands of it on either side of this marabou tail. 2 or 3 strands will be great. Just again, adding a little bit more flash, remembering that it's a fly that we're going to be using early in the season and then again late in the fall. Lay that down the side. Take a couple wraps with the tying thread, and then I'm just going to, instead of cutting it and retying, I'm just going to slide it over to the other side and lay it down and trim it. So now we've got the tail of the leech done. And then for the body, I'm going to be using the Stillwater Solutions Peacock Crystal Chenille. So you can see this is where it gets its name, the Las Vegas name. It's very bright, flashy, green in color. This is a medium-sized chenille. I'm just going to take the chenille, tie it in at just behind the eye of the hook or the gold bead, and lay it down the back, tie it down along the shank of the hook. Bring the tying thread forward, and then you're just going to wrap forward with the chenille. And you can see all the glitter that's going to be coming into this fly. Tie it off behind the gold bead, like so. Make sure she's cinched down, and then we're just going to take our whip finisher and finish off behind the bead. And there we have the finished Las Vegas leech. Again, simple to tie. I like fairly simple flies because I have to tie lots of them, and if it works, why not? So we'll just have a quick look at this fly.